Good afternoon. Today we're going to report on an article we read about critical language awareness by Fairclough. In this article, the author represents an educational application of critical discourse analysis. He said that his work is in response to the enthusiasm during the 80s about language awareness in schools in Great Britain. He states that language awareness programs should be informed by critical views of language and discourse. The article is structured into three sections. First of all, he is going to contrast the assumptions and objectives of critical and uncritical approaches to language awareness. Then he will show an application of critical language awareness work, and in this application, he will show an example, and from this example, he will draw on some reflections and conclusions about critical language awareness. Well, in the first section about critical language awareness, critical and uncritical approaches, he says that language awareness is the knowledge about language, and this is a very important factor in education in Britain. Um, but he argues that language awareness is insufficiently critical, that it has not, that this is not, that doesn't include issues related to power. And that's why he proposes there is a need of an approach with a critical view of language and language study. And that's why he's going to develop this argument during the test. In this section, he's going to contrast critical language awareness with non-critical conception, referred as language awareness by an author that is his last name is Hawkins. He has three different sections here: rationale for language awareness work, conceptions of language awareness work, and relationship envisaged between language awareness and other elements of language education. Well, in the first point about rationale for language awareness work, he said that both both language awareness and critical language awareness use language education as a resource for solving social problems with which center around language. But one fundamental difference between language awareness and critical language awareness is their assumption about what language awareness can do for such a problems. So it means within language awareness, schools seem to be worried or contribute to social harmony and, and solving social problems. But critical language awareness, the schools dedicated to critical pedagogy, the aim is at helping students understand these social problems or problems in general, but not on resolving them, because that's not a matter of a school. That is, in a broader sense, a matter of society. So the aim here is to understand the problems. Language awareness is particularly sensitive to the need of improving study skills in that transition, or that difficult transition from primary to secondary schools, where students have to face changes regarding the starting of learning foreign language or learning different subjects. There is an emphasis in Great Britain to develop insight into the pattern and learning to listening, which are called the conditions for success in foreign language learning. A related, um, although critical language awareness highlights critical awareness of social functioning of language, it doesn't mean that it doesn't focus or doesn't concern about linguistic or the analysis of the linguistic aspects. Well, in the second section, he focused his comparisons of conceptions of language awareness work upon views of linguistic variation and especially in the treatment of standard English. He says that language awareness takes the position that is vital for schools to teach pupils standard English. Although he says that teaching standard English gives some elements to learners in order to communicate and, of course, interact in society, he makes a critique that standard English or the view of standard English and the language variation misses important issues and have detrimental effects. That's why he states that teachers should teach written standard English for pragmatic reasons, but that we teachers have also the role to expose our students to standard English within a more critical view. It means not only avoiding teaching standard English, but expose them to have critical views toward this issue of standard English. Okay. Finally, the relationship envisaged between language awareness and other elements of language education. In here, he makes a comparison and he says that what language awareness and critical language awareness have in common is that awareness affects competence. In his own words, he said that awareness affects language capabilities. But what is different between these two approaches is that language awareness work is isolated from other parts of language education and is considered as a separate element of the curriculum, while critical language awareness is that states that language awareness should be integrated with the development of practice and capabilities. That's why he proposes this model, uh, a model of language learning, where he says that language capabilities are the basis and have to be taken into account. It means the learner's language capabilities and their experiences. And from this part, we have to consider this first, and then to get to language awareness. And finally, to get to language capabilities potential. He also mentions that purposeful discourses have to be taken into consideration and that we have to make links between the work on the development of language awareness and the language practice of the learners. If we make uh, or we work on purposeful discourses or based on the students' interests and students' wishes, um, so critical language awareness can better inform, or the students can be better informed and include decisions about whether to focus, whether to challenge sociolinguistic conventions or to follow them. For example, in the case of standard English. Well, now Paula is going to talk about the last part of the test about identity.
Okay, so the second part is about critical language awareness in practice, identity in academic writing. So the author stated that critical CL and CLA can be reflexively applied in educational organizations and in the practices of those organizations because they are a source of investigation and also of intervention. Is he said that learners and teachers are involved in the development of the critical awareness of the language and their own language capabilities and practices. They can change their own practices depending on the place they are. If there are listeners or speakers, if they are readers or writers. So the aim of this research is to or the focus of this research is the identity function discourse and the different self-identities developed by writers and for writers in the process of academic writing. So the author also found out that different identities are shown in the adaptation of new writers of academic discourse and the ones with experience, which is not easy. Why? Because the like the new ages or these um, this new period, there are new academic writers and there are also like academic writers with lots of experience, so the adaptation of how both work, it's so different. So there are attempts to develop different styles of writing which allow students to project self identities which they feel more comfortable with. So there was a study here carried out by Clark in 1992 where he focused on the curse of um, focus
Politics.
of politics, and so the so the purpose of this course was to produce their politics courses. So um, the course began with an exercise designed in order to raise students' consciousness about their writing process, and the ongoing discussion of the writing process then informs and is fed by, so whatever that they did, they found out that was fed with collaborative writing workshops and tutorials in which students work on assignments set for their politics courses. So after all of this sample, so the, arose discussions of the writing processes allowed to work on the development of critical awareness of linguistic resources and conventions, which later becomes into students' feedback for writing. So the purpose of the study was to empower students with critical awareness of academic conventions and social origins and the effects of those things. So it was the students' choice to use them, being part of them or not. So identity, according to another study here carried out by Ivanik and Simpson, so identity is reflective in writing. So the standard for it is not to include the I pronoun, but the importance to include the pronoun I was and mean that the writer shows himself. The writer also shown his commitment with the reader, and he also shown how much clear and real his written was. So nowadays, informal speech is becoming like part of the academic writing as colloquial and informal styles of spoken language. All of this with the traditional writing or academic writing constitute what is conceived as real and artificial identity, having as a result that all different like having as a result that there are different identities, which is part of our choice. Um, so that is, so we have some kind of reflections of conclusions that and Nati is going to tell you.
Well, based on the study they made, we discussed about using standard English. We concluded that it's not only about challenging the academic or the conventional ways of writing, but it's also knowing what is conventional in order to challenge them. So it's not only challenge them just because, but to be informed first and then make decisions on whether to challenge them or follow the rules.
Okay, so another reflection or conclusion could be that finding identity is not only a matter of the writer, it's also the reader and what is also read. And that we are democratic beings and being critical aware make possible for us to choose our own identity if we are going to be part of the consumers of or being part of the reproducers.
Okay,
So,
that's basically it. We hope you can write comments and questions about this article. And thank you so much for watching.
yeah, thank you.